Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Netherlands ASEAN Agri-Food Webinar 2022. And today the webinar title is Diversify Animal-Based Protein Convergence of Sustainable Food Securities. And my name is Sasithorn Rongjit Phakdi. I'm the faculty staff at Faculty of Agroindustry, Kasetsat University, and I will be your moderator today. And today we understand that we have about 190 participants from different countries. And we will have 5 speakers today, and each speaker will present about 15 minutes. And at the end, we will have the Q&A sessions about 15 minutes. For the audience who have the questions, please type your question in Q&A box. We will go through each question in this Q&A sessions. Okay, before we start, let's hear the welcome remark from the Netherlands ambassador, Mr. Remco van Wijkarden.
Dear distinguished guests, it's an honor and a pleasure for me to welcome you all for this webinar, Diversity Animal-Based Proteins, Convergence of Sustainable Food Security. What we eat and how we grow it is a major driver of climate change. The global food system is estimated to contribute to around 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. More than half of those 30% emissions can be attributed to livestock production. Protein production, especially the common animal-based ones, has a huge impact on the climate. So we have to be innovative in producing them in another, more sustainable way. For us to be able to feed our increasing world population in a sustainable way, it is essential that we change the way we are producing our food. Switching our diets to lower emissions alternative could go a long way to reducing our overall emissions. At the same time, food has to be affordable, safe, and of good quality for everyone. This webinar will provide insights on how to improve the sustainability of animal protein resources. It involves new sources of animal proteins as well as other ways of producing the common ones. Most of you are professionals in the field of agriculture, food and beverage, from government, from the private sector, and from knowledge institutes. You all have an essential role in making our protein sources more sustainable. I'm very happy to see that we have participants from different countries in ASEAN today. I hope you will enjoy this webinar and it will give you inspiration to make the production of animal-based proteins more sustainable. Thank you so much. Kap kun krap.
Thank you very much, Mr. Remco. Okay, let's start with our first speakers. Dr. Thijs Ternissens. He's an agricultural counselor from the Netherlands Embassy, and he will present in the topic of climate change and sustainability in the Netherlands agri-food sector. Please join me to welcome Dr. Thijs.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. Howdy crap. Wait, my system doesn't work. It's always saying. Okay, thank you for your kind introduction. Can I have my first slide? First slide, please. The next slide. Yeah, thank you. I will start my presentation with the SDG 2, Zero Hunger, food security. In 2050, we will need food for almost 10 billion people. Now we are with around 8 billion on Earth. So that's an increase of 25%. And all these people need food that is affordable, safe, and of a good quality, so nutritious. And we have to produce it in a sustainable way. Can I have the next slide, please? For the production of food, we need labor force, farmland, water, nutrients, certified fertilizers, pest control, medication, for example, antibiotics, and so on. The production of food also requires a lot of energy for the production of fertilizers, harvesting, transport, cooling, processing, etc. As the ambassador just mentioned, agriculture is responsible for about 30% of greenhouse gases excretion. Next slide, please. So agriculture has a real impact on our environment and climate change, water sources, air and soil quality, nature, and not to forget on human and animal health and welfare. Changing of food systems needs to be part of the worldwide and national approaches to reduce climate change and loss of biodiversity. Can I have the next slide, please? So the challenge is to produce more fruits with less impact. Concerning food security at present, due to the worldwide crisis, the COVID-19, but also wars in Ukraine, Yemen, and our neighbors in Myanmar, more than 10% of the world population do not have enough food. And I also want to mention that at present, about 30 to 40% of the food is lost, wasted, in the food chain and at consumer level. Next slide, please. Something about the present situation in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, we also face problems with our food production. Besides a lot of positive things of our food production, efficient production, a high qualitative and safe food, and an enormous knowledge about food production in the Netherlands, the too intensive agriculture production now shows more and more its negative effects. For example, the negative impact of greenhouse gases and nitrogen excretion on nature, biodiversity and climate. In the Netherlands, we have to find a new balance, which has to lead to more sustainable food systems. Farmers, the government, politicians, private sector, interest associations, and knowledge institutes are working on that. To find a balanced solution is not easy. We need a joint approach for it. Only in that way, we can get the best ideas and support base for implementation of the necessary measures. And do not only talk, but also act. Just start. That's important for everybody. I think this approach is also interesting for Southeast Asia, and we are willing to share our experience and knowledge. Can you have the next slide, please? So that's no slide, please. No slide. Sorry. I just want to have a full screen. Okay, not possible. The focus of this webinar is on animal-based proteins. As I already mentioned, the world population is growing. If we want to produce enough affordable, safe, nutritious, and healthy foods in a sustainable way, we have to adapt the way we produce, store, transport, and process our foods. Besides that, many people have to change what and how much they eat. That's also important. It's also about how much you eat. The consumption of animal-based proteins worldwide is increasing. In general, the production of animal proteins has a higher footprint. Can you have the next slide, please? I don't know if that's the right one. Can I have the former one? Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. And next, please. The production of proteins need to become more sustainable. This means improvement of sustainable production of animal-based proteins. And that's the focus of this webinar. And also to be more plant-based proteins. Next slide, please. Some countries of an Asian have a tradition of eating plant-based proteins and are familiar with eating insects or other sustainable protein sources. In a lot of Western countries, this is quite new. Some Western consumers do not like the idea of eating insects, as they are associated with non-hygienic practices, and insects do not really look very attractive for them. Next slide, please. With rising incomes and changes in habits, more people can afford the generally higher priced animal products. In Bangkok, I see now a lot of more restaurants offering beef from all over the world, which was not the case 10 years ago, as far as I remember. People associate eating animal-based products with welfare, enjoyment, and a luxury lifestyle. In Southeast Asia, the consumption of animal proteins rose by more than 50% the last decade. Can I have the next slide, please? To eat vegan or become a flexitarian is your own choice. But it is important that you and as many people as possible are aware about the impact of eating proteins. We have to be realistic. There will always be a demand for animal-based products. The question is, however, do we really need them? How much do you need? And are they really healthy? Next slide, please. For health reasons, the Nutrition Center in the Netherlands advises to eat less than 500 grams of meat per week and maximum 300 grams red meat. Because of health reasons, they overall advise to eat less animal-based proteins and more plant-based ones. It is possible to produce animal-based products in a more sustainable way. For example, in areas and on grounds where agriculture is difficult and animals can graze, or when you feed them with residual agricultural products. And there's also a big difference in sustainability between the different animal protein sources. Insects, fish, and poultry are seen as relatively sustainable, but eating less animal-based proteins is always the most sustainable. So if you are addicted to animal proteins or a real meat lover, it is good to think about how it is produced so you can choose the most sustainable meat and or eat less of it. Next slide, please. The big question is, what's the real price for eating animal products? Think about that. What's the difference of impact of eating red meat, poultry, fish, and insects on climate, biodiversity, the worldwide food production capacity, water sources, animal welfare, your health? And an important question is, who will pay in about 25 years the real price if we continue the way we are eating and producing our foods the way we do today? That's an essential question. Next slide, please. That's the last one. You can stop the slide. Finally, in relation to protein consumption, we have at the moment worldwide some important challenges. One, to make animal protein production as sustainable as possible, also with respect for animal welfare. Opportunities are insect production, sustainability of livestock production, increase it, fish, aquaculture, poultry, but also cows. And a third is cultured meat or milk. Is that the future? I don't know. The presentations of today are focused on this point. In the Netherlands, we have a lot of knowledge about the improvement of animal protein production and how to make it more sustainable. And of course, we are willing to share this with you. The second point, in general, it's better to switch from animal-based proteins sources to more plant-based ones. It's our balancing. The challenge is to make plant-based protein products really attractive. Among others, tasteful, with a good bite, safe, healthy, nutritious, and affordable. Knowledge institutes such as the Wageningen University and some Dutch companies work already with a lot of success on these alternative plant-based products, such as meat-like plant-based products. These products have already a good taste and structure and are improving every year. We will give more attention to these plant-based products in the next webinar. Enjoy this webinar and thank you for your attention. Kap Koen Graaf.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thijs. All right, so we'll move to the next speakers. The second speaker is Mr. Thanaphum Moongyam. He's a managing director of the Briquettes Company Limited, Thailand, and he will present about crickets, a transformation protein for common ingredients of healthy diets. Please join me to welcome Mr. Thanaphum.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you so much. And I'm so honored that take the participant in this webinar. My name is Thanaphum, and please allow me to present our presentation today. So that I got, please allow me to sharing my presentation a minute, please. Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, it's your screen.
Yeah. Wait a minute, please. Okay. Now you see?
Yes, but it's not full screen yet. Yeah.
Okay, it's not full screen. Wait a minute, please. Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Okay, so then let's start with our presentation that I got the topic about the cricket transformation protein for common ingredients of the healthy diet. So, as you know that before we go into detail, we would like to share or brief about the global protein challenge, because as you may see in many media that the protein is a hot topic. But what is the challenge? So then there is many challenge as you see in the presentation. Is because of the Paris Climate Agreement. Yeah, that's try to find a solution to reduce the climate of the global warming because of the challenge of the agriculture crops and cattle ranching driving deforestation, which is associated with the climate change problem, and the challenge of the production of soy, which is associated with the sustainability issue, and the challenge of the agriculture production that has negative ecosystem effects, and the challenge of the, as we know that in next 30 years, in 2025, we're gonna have over 9 billion people in our planet. So now how do we live on that time in a sustainable way? And definitely when we have 9 billion people, the demand for fish and the food proteins for those people, is increasing. So those challenges lead us to find the solution in terms of protein or alternative protein, to be enough for 9 billion people, and in terms of reducing the climate change. And the cricket, could be the alternative solution for that. That is the macro scale. So back into the micro scale that we would like to share with some audience that know background about the insect in Thailand. And please go with me slowly. From the first slide, till into the last slide. Then you will see the transformation in terms of farming and in terms of food processing. So then in Thailand, because of our climate, so that's suitable for the insects. So then we have the variety of the insect type, and that is that edible, and that insect are edible as well. So then we have almost 200 types of edible insect in Thailand. Most of them, they are harvested from the forest. So then, and we can harvest each species whole year round. From January till December. That's harvested from the wild. But there are only 4 nowadays that can be found. Okay, and from the from 200 species that can be edible, they are top 6 of edible insect in Thailand. Which is which you can see in the street food, or when you are in Khao San Road, when you are in Patong Road in Phuket, then you will see so many fried insects, which are, for example, silkworm pupa, grasshopper, bamboo worm, giant water bug, cricket definitely that we talk about right now, and 2 water bugs or 2 water beetle. That is most favorite edible insects in Thailand. But when you see from 200 species, 6 species is most favorite. But there are only 4 species that can be found, which are cricket, Sago palm weevil, giant water bug, Thai seals, and ely seals. But from those 4 species, there is only cricket which has regulation or standard, which we call GAP, a good agricultural practice. And Thailand is the first country where regulated this standard to control the sanitary, to control the hygiene, and to ensure the good quality of the raw material for the end product, for the end customer. And by this GAP, there are around 3 species of the cricket that can be farmed and certified by the GAP, which are 2-spot cricket, house cricket, and the other one we call Oriental Jamaica cricket. That is the common name. So now you see that from the first line until this line, in terms of farming, from the past that we harvest the insect from the wild, then we develop to find a method to farm the insect. And from farm the insect, we developed to have a regulation to control the quality, to control the sanitary in farm, to ensure the raw materials and the trust of the end customer. And in terms of the food processing, yeah, from the easy cooking like fry or deep fry and pack in the normal or in the paper bag or in the plastic bag, yeah, they are developed into many or into variety of the food processing. The packaging are nice. The packaging has the material that can be maintain the shelf life. Yeah, from the 1 or 2 days to 1 year, for example, that can be so longer in the modern trade that you see this above. That is the snack, yeah, in the nice package. The insect or the cricket, yeah, are developed and processed into, for example, cricket alternative meat as the patty instead of beef, for example, or extracts, yeah, for medical purpose, for agricultural purpose like chitin to be chitosan, yeah, or cosmetic, for example. This is the way of transformation flow from farm to fork. But why the transformation is developed? Not only for meet the domestic demand, but also to meet the global demand. There is the demand from overseas. So then in this slide, you will see the market size of the global demand of the edible insects from the 9 species of the cricket, of the insects, sorry. But you can see that insect, yeah, is the most one. So then from 2018 until 2023, yeah, the market size of the cricket is going up from 133 to 400, almost 460. So then it's going up almost 28%. Yes, and when we go deep into the application, yeah, this is the insect powder or the cricket powder from all over the world. You see that in USA, yeah, it's going up from 2016 to 2023. So then it's going up, market size, yeah, 28%. Or in Netherlands sales, yeah, 2016, the demand is only 2.5 or almost 3 US million. Yeah, but it's going up to 2023 next year, 12, almost, yeah, 13 US million, and is 25%. So that is the world demand that the Thai cricket or the Thai insect should be supplied enough for that. And what is the briquette? Yeah, what does the briquette do for me to meet the demand of the global, to meet the demand domestically or internationally? So then the briquette know from the upstream to downstream. So that's why we know that in the farming, not only the gap, but we also have the archetype to control. The archetype is the application, IoT-based cricket system management to control the quality, yeah, to control the sanitary, use the IoT. This application is useful for improve the FCR feed convergence ratio and to maintain the standard of farming, yeah, and comply to the GAP. And definitely, even though we have a GAP, but we would like to make it better so that the archetype will help the customer see and ensure see and be sure that the end product come from the good raw material. So it's about traceability and transparency, and definitely sanitary control the sanitary. And the briquette has our own product. Yeah, like the cricket powder, the cricket protein bar, or crispy cookie or sausage that put the cricket powder into the normal size sausage or cricket cracker. So then we have the restaurant names Waals Burger, and briquette export all those end product as well. And even there is the requirement from the overseas buyer that they look for the quality quality insect. We can source the quality or the raw material for them as well. And those for this mission, we have a core value, which is QUET, or stand for Quality, Expert, Trust, and Sustainability. So we talk about the insect in terms of sustainability, because the insect or cricket use less land, less water, and emits very low global or greenhouse gases. But in terms of the health, because cricket contains variety of nutrients. So then this slide will show you that there is the study of the 5,000 consumer around Asia Pacific, like Australia, China, India, Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, and Thailand. Those people is the new generation people who is the health conscious. So then they look for the product that not only good for health, yes, they are health conscious, but they look for the product that good for the environment as well. That's eco conscious. So this is why the briquette do the cricket business, and we okay. So that is our restaurant named Waals Burger. So then our restaurant has two purposes to run the business. The first one is to raise the awareness, to use the cricket powder as the nutrients enhancer. So the cricket powder is not only or the normal powder, but is nutrients enhancer, just to put into the normal menu or to put into the normal recipe, shift onto the healthier menu or healthier recipes. So it means that in our restaurant Waals Burger, all menu or recipe contain from 10% to 100% of cricket powder instead of flour. So from the burger, which we have the perception of the junk burger, onto healthier burger by the cricket powder, or the desserts like toulet, like brownie, is healthy dessert, for example. And the most important thing is we would like to deliver the value which we have 4 value. That is first G, 4G value. First G is good taste. Foods must be tasty. Second G is good for health. That's why is the trend of the cricket powder. Third G is good for Thai cricket farmer. That's why is sustainability as well. And fourth G is good for our planet. So this is some example of our brochure to educate the new generation that what they receive when they eat the cricket, not the whole cricket. We try to avoid to show the whole cricket, but the cricket powder. Avoid the ick factor. And this is Waals Burger Classic. So then patty is 50% of cricket meat, yeah, and bun contain also cricket powder. That is healthier dessert. So you see that we try to communicate with the customer that healthier food is sustainable taste. Yeah, to change the mindset, the perception of the customer. And we believe that we cannot be healthy, yeah, when we live in the unhealthy planet. As our slogan, why consumption lessen burden to the world. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thanapoom. Okay, let's move to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ms. Yvonne van der Horst. She's the Global Director of the Dairy Development from the Royal Friesland Campina NV from the Netherlands. Please join me to welcome Ms. Yvonne, and she will present in the title of Sustainable Dairy Farming, A Balance with Nature. Please join me to welcome Ms. Yvonne.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very honored to attend this webinar and to be invited as speaker. Can you please put my slides on? Yes. Yes, thank you very much. Well, just a quick, it's of course not the most interesting part of the presentation, but just a quick introduction of myself after showing this nice picture of the garden of the Dutch embassy in Thailand. Next slide, please. A bit about me. I have a background in tropical animal husbandry. After that, I studied zootechnics at Wageningen University. I spent some years in science, and after that, most of my career I spent in quality assurance related to dairy production, but also did some business at product management and marketing for the ingredient of early life nutrition, so for infant formula. And the last 2 years, trying to combine all my experience and what I learned in my life in this role as Global Director of Dairy Development. And we especially focus on building sustainable dairy value chain. And the picture to the right is actually representing the complexity of a dairy value chain. It's really continuous and end-to-end perspective that you take in mind if you really want to continuously develop such a value chain. Next slide, please. To start with the speakers before me already said, and a very interesting presentation by the previous speaker on the insects. And considering dairy self-sufficiency will be below 100% 2030, yeah? As Mr. Teunis already said, there's already quite a lot of people in this world, unfortunately, that do not have access to enough food. But on global level, if you consider the growth of the population and the dairy production as it's developing currently, the self-sufficiency will be below what the total world population will need. And it depends whether all the alternatives that are now being developed can compensate for that. But I do hope so, of course, for the world. Next slide, please. And this is quite an interesting picture. It's a very simple one, but I use it a lot. Of course, we want zero hunger in the world. So we want enough volume of food. But it's not only about volume, right? It's also about composition. It's about the quality, the safety of the product, the way that it's made, and within that, also the sustainability. And this is actually a picture I like to use when you look at the Netherlands. Of course, I represent many more countries, but considering the Netherlands, going like 75 years back, it was really about first getting enough milk. We were in the times after the Second World War, we also were in a situation where there was a lack of food, enough food. So we first started focusing on volume, getting more. But after a while, we also wanted it to have the right composition, because you need the nutrition to be in there, to be as healthy as possible. After that, we said we do not only want volume and being healthy, but it should be safe. It should be of high quality and not contaminated with anything. After that, we said, but the way it is produced, so the process on the farm, needs to be right as well. And that was more about the drug use, that people keep administration, that people can at all times show what it's done. Like my previous speaker was talking about good agricultural practices. That's actually what this is, to show that the way you do it is also correct. And after a while, we also started talking about sustainability. So it shouldn't only be good for the consumer, it shouldn't only be good for the profit of the farmer, but it should also be good for the planet. And it's always about those three things to keep that in balance. A lot of people already use the word balance, and that's really where it's all about. Next slide, please. This is just a picture to show that we as Friesland Campina, we have a long history. To start at the bottom, our company exists for over 150 years. So we have a very long heritage in the production of milk, and actually from grass to glass. We are a cooperative, so we are owned by dairy farmers. And because we are owned by dairy farmers, we are always down to earth, literally, because it's all about understanding really where our milk comes from, making sure, like I said, that there's enough and of good quality, but also produced in the most sustainable, innovative, and efficient way. Besides doing that, where our members are located in Northwest Europe, we also have over 30 years experience in other countries. I day-to-day work with 10 other countries with Friesland Campina, of which Thailand is one, where we collect local milk. And in those 10 countries, as said, we work on dairy development activities in many ways. We do that with international programs, we do that with a lot of partners, and evidently every country has its plan to continuously improve and develop on dairy. Next slide, please. And this is really our vision, our strategy. And dairy development, in our eyes, is really about three things. One, on top, is food security. To make sure that there's zero hunger, that there's enough food in the world. Then the third one, or the second one, on the right-hand bottom of the triangle, it's about socioeconomic stability. It's maybe a big word, but it's really about the farmer prosperity part. So we need the farmers to feed the world, no matter what they make, whether it's insects, milk, plants. And the third one is, yes, to feed the world, yes, to support the farmers, but always to do it in an environment sustainable way. And we do know, as said, that also dairy production impacts the environment in the world. So that's continuously also one of our three strategic pillars to focus on. And we do that with the 4 blocks on the bottom of the slide, continuously always work with partners. We are a dairy company, a dairy processing company, and we do have quite a lot of knowledge about the full dairy chain, but not all, evidently. So when you talk about feeding of the cows, breeding, doing it in the right way, the farming systems, we work with partners continuously. That's one. The second one is continuous knowledge transfer, because if the world keeps developing, we also have to make sure that the farmers keep developing and that they have access to the new knowledge that can be applicable on their farms. The third one is that if you build partnerships, if you help farmers improve, we have to make sure that the milk goes where it should go, so thus to the consumers. So we continuously invest in building or improving infrastructures by ourselves or with partners. And the last one, obviously, is to have that milk and nourish the consumers there where the milk is being made. Next slide, please. These are the 3 pillars again. So food security, socioeconomic stability, and environmental sustainability. To start with food security, the left pillar, we really focus on increasing the productivity per cow and continuously investing in the quality of the milk and the safety of the milk. I will come back to that later, what productivity more can bring. Then the second one is reduce imports. It really differs per country where we work with. And in Thailand already, a lot of local milk is being sourced. The third one is reduce food losses. Gijs Teunissen also mentioned that. There's a lot of food lost, either at farm or during the production process or at consumer level. And every part of the chain has its responsibility to work on that. Then the second column, socioeconomic stability, so really the farmer prosperity, is thus to help develop the local farmers. As you might have seen on my previous slide, on an annual basis, we train between 60 to 75,000 farmers. Also in Corona times, we continue doing that and trying to change to online ways, which is not always easy, but really continuously train them on any topic that is relevant to them, to increase productivity, to improve quality, but also sustainability. And while doing that, you will definitely also improve the livelihood of the farmers. And the third one is self-sustaining. I like to use the word self-sustaining instead of, or next to sustainability, because what you would actually want is in anywhere in the world or whatever production chain you're talking about, that it's self-sustaining, meaning that it's not only the farmer that knows how to run his farm in a perfect way, but also that the whole ecosystem or the whole economy around it works in par with that farmer. So for instance, if we would train farmers on better breeding or better feeding, and he has no access to those better breeds or better feeds, then it's really no use to teach them, to train them. But if you work with partners that can make that available, if you work with universities or whoever, then you really work on a self-sustaining ecosystem that can keep on developing towards the future with everybody involved. And doing all that right, in the end, of course, will prevent dispersion and poverty in rural areas, because anywhere in the world, we see that people working on farms are relatively high age, and that rural areas are getting more and more empty as people move to cities. If you can make farming again more attractive, more profitable, more prosperous, and good for the environment, then that will grow. Then the third one, obviously where we're here for today, is again, when producing dairy, we want to do that with the lowest possible impact on the environment. And one of the main contributors to that is to increase the farm efficiency, of course, while doing good for welfare, animal health, and the environment. But efficiency in the end contributes most to that. I will come back to that later. With that, lower the impact on carbon footprint. Transport, of course, is also one of the big things that we focus on. And all of these can contribute to the SDG and the COP26 goals, of which 6 are mentioned at the bottom of the slide, which are really top of our minds when working on dairy development. Next slide, please. And this is a framework of the FAO. Of course, everyone knows FAO, and they focus on four strategic areas: better life, better production, better nutrition, better environment. All those topics where we're here for today as well. I will not go into detail, but I think this is always a very nice slide to use because it contains everything that we want for our future. Like Gijs Teunissen mentioned, for the generation after us, 25 years from now. Next slide, please. Now, when going a bit more into the better environment part, so where the circle is, the blue box on the bottom, it's really about developing, and what we focus on is developing on professionalizing dairy on the 10 countries where I may do my activities together with our local teams. And by professionalizing, it's a big word, but it will increase efficiency. It will reduce food losses. It will reduce the carbon footprint. And in the end, that will have an overall environmental improvement coming from dairy. Next slide, please. And I always like this graph because it's really clear in one view. Of course, there are a lot of figures in it. But what it says, the graph, the big graph on the left, it's the carbon footprint per kilogram of milk. In Western Europe, and there's no circle, but also Oceania on the right. But in Western Europe and North America and Oceania, where the climate is very favorable for dairy production, dairy has been developing, and like I showed with the graph before, has been developing very fast in the past 50, 60, 70 years. And what happened is that the farms especially became more efficient and production per cow went up. And I like to mention that is that we always do that. We're keeping the welfare in mind because only a healthy cow will produce a lot of milk, right? So that's a prerequisite. But this graph really makes it evident that the carbon footprint per kilogram of milk is significantly lower in efficient farming systems. When looking, for instance, at Africa and some countries in Asia, the efficiency is lower, the production levels per cow are lower, and the carbon footprint is also higher for in those situations. And it's also illustrated by the graph on the right. It's a source of the IFCN, the database actually in the world on dairy, based on data from over 140 countries. But the graph on the right, the regression graph, shows that for every kilogram of milk that a cow will produce more, the carbon footprint is associated to be lower. So that's what you can see. So if we can improve production per cow, so instead of using, for instance, 3 cows to produce 10 kilograms of milk, or you can do that with 1 cow, then the carbon footprint will be significantly lower because you will need, in relative sense, less feed. You will have, in relative sense, less manure, and you will have, in relative sense, less emissions. So that's what we try to focus on with our farmers. Next slide, please. This is another graph. It actually shows the opposite on labor productivity. And this is perhaps not only about labor productivity, but productivity in general on the farm. Again, showing that if productivity can improve, as I showed on the last slide, it will improve the carbon footprint, but also productivity will lead to more prosperity of farmers, wanting them to stay and being able to invest in the farm to improve. Because we can tell everyone to improve and focus on sustainability, but you also need the means, knowledge, but also finance in order to do that. So we have to keep that in mind when we want to develop this. We really have to support the farmers producing our food. Next slide, please. And when we work on dairy development in the 10 countries and in many, with all the countries having their different emphasis and different challenges and opportunities, but for all the countries, these 10 building blocks are key. So what I already mentioned on some topics is that to start at the top of the blue part. The blue is what we call upstream, the green is what we call downstream. So the upstream part is really about the farmer. So when improving a farm, improving efficiency and sustainability, you need continuous access to better breeds, better feed. I'll go over it relatively quick because I already mentioned a couple of topics. You need the farm skills in a broader sense. The one on the bottom, of course, on quality hygiene, to deliver the best quality milk and to reduce waste with that, because we don't have to discard milk. Obviously, enough access to water and energy in order to run your farm. And then the last, but definitely not least, is access to finance. For everyone, not only for farmer, for business, for personal life, you need access to some form of finance to continuously improve. Then when the milk comes from those farms, with higher yields, better quality. There's always a fair price to go with that. The milk collection network needs to be in place in order to get it to the factories, to the plants. And last, the processing route to market needs to be in place. So these 10 building blocks we always work on. You can never work on one only, but it's really an integral, holistic thing that you have to do. Thank you. Next slide, please. And then the golden triangle model, like we like to call it. That's really the partnership which I mentioned before. No one can manage any food chain, which is always complex, alone. So we, in every country, we try to work as much as possible in this triangle model. Work with the government, knowledge institutes, and the private sector, which is not only us, but which is also the individual processors, our colleagues, the milk collectors, the farmers, but also the feeding companies, the breeding companies. Work with the knowledge institutes, how to enhance knowledge that's really applicable in the particular countries, and work with the governments to, for instance, lobby for more suitable breeds, or lobby for favorable situations to make environmental improvements possible. So that this golden triangle, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Is really what needs to be put in place to make those to make it able to work on those 10 building blocks. So the government assuring dairy policies to serve the goal, whether that's more volume or better environmental practices. Enable the duty regulations to accelerate dairy development. For instance, in some countries, it's not allowed to import different breeds, or there are high taxes on importing better equipment for dairy. If those kind of talks can be put on the table, that will definitely help. Knowledge institutes, and to share the knowledge by the local institutes, but also by what Gijs Teunissen also said. We bring in a lot of Dutch experts, if you like, and if that helps, and if that's useful to the local situation. Of course, that knowledge needs to be translated to the local situation, and next to set up monitoring programs, because by only, for instance, training farmers or giving them access to better means, you also want to know whether it's actually making impact, whether it has effect what you do. So that's on the left-hand side. Then for the private sector, we really have to set the priorities. We collect the milk, so we can set priorities that needs to be more sustainable, better quality, organize a change to get that milk, and to, of course, valorize it into healthy, nutritious products for the markets. And the green box on the top, that's the stakeholders I mentioned before. So the feed, the breeding sector, the grass seed companies, those kind of companies, veterinarians that we like to work with. Next slide, please. This is my last slide. These are 10 improvement areas for environmental sustainability we want to work on. As said, we also work on improving volume, quality, safety, the assurance on the farms, but definitely also sustainability. And you can do that in many ways. And in one country, one contributes more than the other. In one country, you have more potential to do it than another. But reforestry, for instance, it's a project we're working on in Nigeria to do that. Yield improvement, it's actually something we work on in every country, preferably with partners. Solar energy, we have quite in our 10 countries on multiple places. We have solar energy driven collection centers to cool the milk. Farm efficiency, I already mentioned that, especially working closely with the farmers. And then waste management. If farming grows or cows will, there's always manure coming from cows, to make sure that we use that in the right way, either get energy from it or make sure to get it back to the land as good as possible, because in the end you cannot grow crops of whatever type if you have no manure. But another possibility with manure is to invest in biodigesters and use it as an energy supply. Wind energy, also energy supply. We have, for instance, also in many places, we installed boreholes with wind energy to pump up the water. Water management, obviously coming from the farms to make sure that they always have access to clean water, and rotation crops where possible. And also we starting on some projects in some countries to see whether we can work closer with crop producer to use the residuals as cow feed, which is often very nutritious for cows. So these are the 10 improvement areas for specifically for environmental sustainability we work on and invest in. So after being this my last slide, one more slide to close up. Next slide, please. So it's perhaps not what I would like to prevent and advise is to not get into the discussion what is better, what's good or bad or right or wrong. But I think with the amount of people we already have in this world and we're going to get in this world, it's really about finding the right balance, which foods to produce where in the most efficient way, like the insects probably do a lot better in Thailand, like my previous speaker said, than in the Netherlands, but produce it there where it's efficient and keep on making it more efficient so we can really feed the world together for our planet and definitely for our future. Thank you very much. Khap khun kha.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ivan, for sharing your perspective on sustainable dairy farming. Well, let's go to the next speakers. Our next speaker is Mr. Mario Eduardo Simaco. He's the founder and the CEO of Green Ants BV from the Netherlands. And he will present in the topic of ant farming, connecting of protein, forest preservations, and blockchain. Please join me to welcome Mr. Mario.
Hello, thank you very much for this invitation. I am honored to be here today, and I thank you the Dutch Embassy in Thailand, the ambassador, the Agricultural Council for organizing all of this, and also the other speakers that are here today with us. So. I think that my presentation and my talk will come very fluently after the previous speakers, as it will focus on ant farming, but also on finance, which is a key point of innovation in agriculture. So I will now try to share my screen. Here it is. Okay. Green Ant is a Dutch company, a Dutch startup, which operates mostly in Southeast Asia and promotes decentralized finance through blockchain and ant farming. Our main question when we started is how can we make carbon sequestration, which is a key point in reducing the effects of climate change, and protein production blooming together, flourishing together. Protein production is one of the main causes of deforestation. And therefore, solving it, making protein production better and more efficient is a fundamental point if we want to increase our ability of sequestrating more carbon. And for doing this, we are promoting an innovative way of producing protein. And this innovative way is based on farming weaver ants. Ocophilus maragdina, the weaver ant, or the modang in Thailand, is widespread in Southeast Asia, south of India, and Eastern Africa. And this is an extremely interesting animal, able actually to to transform biomass into protein at an incredible level of 39%, while normal traditional meat sources such as cow or chickens are around 10-15%, and fish is only 25%. So we use weaver ants as alternative protein and as a natural biocontrol. And because weaver ants are able to eat pests and therefore reducing the need of traditional and polluting pesticide. Weaver ants can be farmed on trees, and as they nest on the trees, can be breeded and can transform an expense, the expense of pesticide for farmers, into a resource generator, the generator of an alternative protein, of an income. And therefore they, being farmed on trees, are a stimulus for reforestation, are a key point for circular economy, and they reduce pollution. All of this means building an economy over carbon sequestration. So our strategy is tackle the point of building and spreading an alternative source of protein, a sustainable pesticide, but also to financially include farmers to give them access and resources for building this system. And we include the farmers trying to rewarding best practices. So how do we do? We train farmers all around Thailand and in future Southeast Asia to farm the weaver ants on their trees. And then we use our blockchain technology to give them access to decentralized finance. Decentralized finance is a key tool for giving access to finance in rural environments. And it is such a tool because it doesn't require strong and difficult to access traditional institutions, but rather can guarantee an exchange peer-to-peer and can base finance over value creators that were before excluded them, such as carbon sequestrators, such as trees. On the other hand, we also use AI and remote sensing based monitoring systems to monitor the exact amount of carbon each trees on which we farm the ants, in order to reward best practices and reward the farmers that better use their land to sequestrate carbon. So how do we do in practice? We engage with farmers, we train them, we share the key importance of sequestrating carbon, and we tokenize trees. Each tree becomes a non-fungible token. A non-fungible token is a blockchain object that it is unique. And because every tree is unique, we tokenize each tree into a non-fungible token. These non-fungible tokens generate one green ant crypto coin for each kilo of carbon stored. And because the farmers own these NFTs, they get one coin for each kilo of carbon that they store. This gives them the resources for finance, regenerative agriculture, and sustainable farming. And therefore, they find themselves with two plantations. One traditional plantation in which the trees produce fruits, in which the trees are farmed. And this original plantation should be a sustainable one, should be organic, should be pesticide-free. And then a second plantation, which is instead is virtual. And it is based on their NFT ownership. So they own an X amount of NFTs that will give them coins that they can exchange on the main markets for financing their innovation. Many people have asked me, how is it going? How does this work in Thailand? Well, we have contacted hundreds, and we are engaging partners with hundreds of farmers. And so far, the result has been that Thailand is the perfect environment for developing this, for a cultural and social characteristics. Believing in the value of the land is a key point for building a sustainable agriculture. And therefore, if every farmer, if every landowner would have the resources and access to finance, it will be possible to stimulate a hyper-large scale change worldwide. So as the previous speakers before me said, we should start from the farmers. And it is on this idea that our Green Ant network works. Green Ant network is the system which is a blockchain network on which all the actors interact to promote sustainable and innovative agriculture. The first actors are the tree planters, those who put a seed in the land for planting the tree. Then there are the tree growers, which are mostly farmers, while the tree planters can be also organizations. And then there are the AI monitorers, satellite images analyzers that are able to monitor the exact amount of carbon stored in each tree. The data verifiers, because we want to base a system on the exact amount of carbon stored in each tree. So we welcome institutions, scientific organizations, and other partners around the world to do this with us, to give more financial opportunities to the farmers to valorize their trees as a system for building value for the aid given to the cause of climate change. Each farmer farming sustainably is mitigating the risk of climate change. And therefore, our system, financial system, should give value to the farmers for this contribution, and incentivizing and giving tools for increasing the climate change mitigation derived from sustainable farming. And in doing this, with decentralized finance, we can increase inclusiveness. We can allow farmers to raise capital, implement new technology, and rewarding those who farm sustainable worldwide, applying this system, starting from the riverlands, to many different conditions. And therefore basing finance on carbon sequestration, because there is no way wealth is meaningful if it is not linked to earth and to carbon sequestration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mario. A very interesting topic on ant farming. Okay, so let's move to our last speaker. Our last speaker is Ms. Davisa Haiboon Siri, and she's the standard officer from the National Bureaus of Agricultural Commodities and Food Standard Thailand, or ACFS. She will present in the topic of Codex towards sustainability of food system. Please join me to welcome Ms. Davisa.
Okay. สวัสดีค่ะ Thank you, Ms. Tongchit Pakdi, for your kind introduction. And good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored to be here presenting this to you, and would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the Embassy of the Netherlands for inviting me to be one of the speakers in this webinar. So let me share my screen. So you can see my screen properly? Okay. So after listening to all the speakers previously presented, you can see that we have several innovations of food products and new production system and so on, and even the new blockchain with the NFT and that stuff. So to complete the picture, let's see about the laws and regulations around sustainability and food system, and see how the international bodies, standard setting bodies perspective on this issue, and how could this influence individual countries. So the content that I will talk to you today, I will touch briefly about Codex and its importance to countries like ASEAN. And if those who so very familiar with the Codex, so please bear with me. And after that, I'll go on to the Codex work on sustainability and their future works before finish up with the next step ahead for the innovative food sources and technology from the global perspective regarding the standards. So who is Codex? Codex or Codex Alimentarius is actually a collection of the international standards, guidelines, and codes of practice adopted by Codex Alimentarius Commission, the central part of the joint FAO and WHO food standards program. Codex was established in order to protect the health of consumers and ensure fair practices in the food trade by basing this on the sound scientific evidence provided by the independent and impartial scientific expert bodies convened by FAO and WHO. Codex food safety texts are the references used in the World Trade Organization, or WTO. In the WTO's Agreement on Sanitary and Phytosanitary Measures, or SPS agreement, it specifies clearly that member countries should harmonize their food standards as much as possible on the Codex. Where deviation may arise, it should be supported by scientific justification. For WTO Agreement on Technical Barriers to Trade, or TBT agreement, though not making explicit reference, relies on Codex standards as the benchmark for international harmonization in the area of food, such as quality and consumer information standards. Therefore, Codex texts are important tools for international trade and can help solving any disputes that may arise. In addition, many countries fully adopt Codex texts as their regulations, especially developing countries. And in this slide, I showed you how Codex texts relate to the ASEAN regulatory framework related to food. In the ASEAN food safety policy, it clearly mentions that the standards, guidelines, and recommendations issued by Codex should be the first option for adoption as ASEAN harmonized food safety measures. Also in ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreement, or ATICA, it also mentions Codex, among others, as a reference for member states when they implement the sanitary or phytosanitary measures. Thus, Codex work direction is very important as it could lead the agri-food production system in this region and also to the world. So now we move to the Codex work that relate to the Sustainable Development Goals and how could it help the global community to meet SDGs. There are some clear linkages between Codex work and certain SDGs targets, while in other targets may be less direct. I'd like to highlight just a few, namely SDG 2, Zero Hunger, and SDG 3, Good Health and Well-Being. Countries are able to work towards safe and nutritious food for all consumers by accessing the science-based Codex standards that address issues for contaminants in food, food hygiene, food labeling, antimicrobial resistance, residues of wet drug, and pesticide residues. Codex also work on a number of guidelines aimed at addressing all forms of malnutrition and work on nutrient reference values and guidelines on nutrition labeling, which can be a weapon combating with the NCDs. In addition, Codex provides principles and guidelines for countries to set up their national food control system, as well as the food inspection and certification systems, which are one of the most important elements in ensuring the food safety for all. Codex work can contribute, maybe less direct, toward the achievement of SDG 12, as safer food leads to reduction of food loss and waste. There are published practical guidelines to reduce risks of contamination through responsible application of agrochemicals, which in turn enables more sustainable and efficient management of natural resources. Advisory document on accurate food labeling has also been provided to reduce food waste, that is, appropriate date marking and product information in order to reduce the likelihood of foodstuffs spoiling before they are consumed, or of them being thrown away before they need to be. All these international texts developed by Codex as a result of global collected data sets being evaluated by world-leading experts and adopted in a consensual process of all 189 members. It is therefore inevitable to say that the work of Codex is achieved from partnerships, i.e. the SDG 17. Apart from what have been published so far, Codex is also looking into the possible new work that directly address sustainability and new food sources and technology. In Codex Committee on Food Labeling, New Zealand has proposed to develop new work on the sustainability labeling, which aim to provide guidelines that for such labeling not to mislead consumers. However, it is still in a drafting stage. Another work many of you may find interesting, Codex has issued a survey, very beginning step, regarding on the topics on cultivated meat, seafood, and dairy, fermentation-derived ingredients, plant-based protein alternatives, seaweed, edible insects, 3D printed food, and microalgae, to find common issues in the regulatory perspectives and whether it deems necessary for Codex to work on and provide standards, guidance, or code of practices for member countries. So this survey is looking at whether the current regimes of Codex work are appropriate to accommodate such innovations, or will it require new commodity standards specifically? For the food hygiene perspective, is the current hygiene control of general food, traditional food, can fit the new production methods like 3D printing? Does Codex need to set any new maximum levels for contaminants or food additives when these ingredients are added to food? Or will there be a new nutritional or health claims related to this new innovative food, and whether the new criteria for such claims should be set? Methods of analysis and samplings are also very important to ensure the monitoring and control of food by the regulatory bodies in the countries. So will this be practical or and implementable by developing countries? Food labeling is also another important aspect. Consumers need to understand clearly about products they decide to purchase. So are the current provisions sufficient to address this issue? Also, new food sources could have different allergen profile from traditional ones, like the insects, and thus further scientific research is needed to indicate whether or not the current allergen labeling is appropriate. So what's next? In summary, what lies ahead for new protein sources or new production techniques when upscaling the production for wider market like international market. In order to ensure sustainability of the agri-food system, of course, it requires the work from both demand and supply sides. There are now numerous moves in the research and development, just like what we see so far in this webinar. But as I mentioned earlier, the regulations and the laws of countries or at the international levels and their implementation are very important. These laws and regulations need to accommodate the innovation rather than hindering it to facilitate the market access and trade. But still, they need to fulfill their purpose, like to ensure consumer protection, to ensure the safety of all consumers. Secondly, consumer perception and acceptance of such transformation of the food sources is another aspect to consider. To increase the demand of the food from sustainable agri-food production system, maybe consumer education is needed to increase consumer acceptance of new food sources and techniques like the insects, that they need to be educated that the insects is not that bad and is actually good for the health of the human and as well as the environment. So to move toward the same goal, there are a number of things that all of us, the public and the private sectors alike, need to work on. I believe that this webinar could inspire many and hope there will be more similar events in the future. And this is all for me. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Davisa from ACFS. And okay, so we have about 15 minutes for the Q&A sessions now. So for those of you who have questions, please type in the Q&A box. So I will start with the first questions. Okay, the first questions is for Dr. Kais. The question is how you see the roles of Thailand and the Netherlands for international food securities.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I will try to give an answer on it. I think both Thailand and the Netherlands are important food producers. We are both big. Thailand export and import a lot of foods, but also big exporter, also for the local markets. I think it's the best to produce national and regional. It's also more sustainable not to export too much food, but sometimes you can't produce it in your own country. Like we are not able to produce exotic fruits, so it's good to export them to the Netherlands, but it's not necessary. It's better not to do it. I think in Thailand they could improve the efficacy of the production, and I think we have a quite efficient production in the Netherlands, so we can cooperate on that way. I know Thailand is interested to export cricket powder to the Netherlands or to Europe. I think that's also an interesting product for Europe. So I think it's good to interchange and to use what's best of both and to interchange knowledge. It's also already mentioned by Yvonne. Knowledge interchange, interchange of experience is very important. I think we are both big agricultural countries, so it's good to cooperate in a good way and to get the best out of it both, but to keep it regional as much as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Kais. Okay, so the next question is for Mr. Thanapoom. Actually, he's already answered in the Q&A box, but maybe he can answer a little bit more here. The question is, insects become more well-known and perceived as an alternative protein for human foods and animal feeds. Do you think the mainstream of proteins such as pork, beef, or chicken will be less consumed in the futures? What do you think?
Yes, I think it's gonna be impact to the consumption of conventional meat in terms of sustainability, in terms of emerging of the new generation who is the eco-conscious or the health-conscious. That is the, and as you know that because of the global warming that you have seen in the many media, it's caused the climate change. So the meat consumption will be less consumed, and not only the insects, as I mentioned, there are also another alternative protein like from the plant-based protein or cell meat, or another organic product. All of these would cause the less consumption of conventional meat. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thanaphum. There's a second question for you, Mr. Thanaphum. What is the price point for insect product compared to animal protein?
Thank you so much. I asked for these questions. I don't understand the meaning of price point. Could you please explain exactly what does it mean, price point?
This question is from Mr. Gordon Butlin. Can you clarify more about your questions here? Are you talking about which one is more expensive, or how much is the price? Mr. Gordon, are you here? Okay, so well, if you hear, can you maybe you can type more explanation about your question in the Q&A box. So I
Can you hear me?
Oh yes,
Okay.
yes, go ahead.
No,
yes.
really, it's a comparison between, let's say, a finished product from insects and a finished product, say a burger, whatever you like, of animal protein. Just a straight comparison.
Okay, thank you. So maybe Mr. Thanaphum, can you show example about the price of an insect burger compared to the normal burger?
So as we have a restaurant Waals burger, yeah, with the all menu contain the cricket powder, and the price is a little bit expensive than the patty that made from the beef or chicken or pork. The reason that we made the price a little bit expensive because of we concerned about the value. Yeah, when we talk about the pork, when we talk about the conventional meat, we forget about the hidden cost of the cost that damage our planet, about the cost that we have to, we have to prevent before we kill our health. That is the hidden cost that we didn't think about that. But the value that we put into our product in Waals burger, yeah, we use the cricket powder as a nutrient added. So it means that from the junk burger, you have to think about when you eat burger, what you received from that burger. But our burger, like bun, we start from bun burger. We put the cricket powder into bun. We mix 50% of cricket meat with the beef. So then we use less beef. We put more cricket powder or cricket meat in order to add the nutrition into the burger. So then we try to change the perception of junk burger onto the healthier burger. So that is the value that the customer pay for them. And from our story, you know that because our Waals burger founded last April, that is the second wave of COVID in Thailand. Almost all restaurants are closed. But from that period until now, our restaurant, yeah, runs very well, even though the other restaurant is closed, because we know exactly what we deliver the value to what kind of the customer segment. So then we know that that customer is the health conscious customer, and they find something that good for health in the term of COVID, and especially the post-COVID. They look for something that good for their health, but the food should be delicious. So then there are so many burger lovers, but they try to find the alternative burger that they love, but more healthier than the normal burger. That is maybe the answer for them. So if we find the correct, the exactly customer who would like to pay more, when they pay for health, then they happy to pay. That is the answer. Thank you.
So Mr. Thanapum, can you give exact like how much is your burger?
So then our burgers is around 270 to around 300 baht.
270 to 300 baht. Okay, but
Yes.
you get the value of nutrition and environmental concern. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Kais, you raise your hand. You want to give some comments, please? You can turn on your microphone too. Sorry.
It's also about true pricing. If you pay for a burger now, the price is actually too low because you don't pay for the impact on your environment and the climate. So, and I think if you buy a burger from Crickets, from Mr. Kuntana Poom, I think you pay the real price, more the real price. So it's a delay of paying the price, and who has to pay it? I mentioned it already in my presentation. We pay for it 25 years later on. It are our children or grandchildren. So I think that's also an important point. But naturally, most people look at the price they have to pay, but that's not the real price.
Yeah. Thank you for the comments, Dr. Kais. Next question is for Ms. Evans. The question is dairy and milk is containing nutritional value for children, as you told. And do you think if plant-based drink could replace the cow milk or children's maybe in the futures?
Yes, thank you. I already saw the question in the chat, so a quite interesting question, definitely in perspective of this webinar, and maybe the question should have been an insect replacement drink, or I don't know if you're working on that, Mr. Thanapum, but now what it's really from my years when I worked for early life nutrition is, of course, we as humans, our babies drink milk. So when you look at cow milk, it's not for nothing that cow milk has been used as infant formula for many, many years already, because it's closest to what the infant needs. But for instance, one of the things that is sometimes done in infant formula is that the proteins in cow milk are bigger than the proteins in infant formula. So you break apart, like the protein is a molecule, so you break apart the protein a bit to make it smaller, so make it better digestible for infants. Why am I saying this? Is that infant formula is really specific, is really difficult. Infants are the most valuable thing in the world to us, right? We want the best for our children. And it's not really about, I think a lot of discussions are always about proteins, right? So animal proteins versus plant or insect proteins. And infant formula contains a lot more than proteins only. And then you have different types of proteins, one that fits better for the infant, that works better for the infant than not. Nobody wants cramps with babies because everybody wants to sleep at night. So it's really not that simple. It's not a question that just can be answered. Infant formula really needs to be closest to breast milk. Breast milk is best, right? But if you want or need to take a substitute, then make it as close as possible to breast milk. That's the important part. And behind cow milk, to make infant formula of that, there is like 100 years of science, right? So if you would make that from plant or insect or any type of protein, that would require really a lot of insects. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but please do it right, because we're talking about infants. So that would be my story.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Evans. I think the recommendation for plant-based milk, it's not recommend for children less than 5 years. I think that's what I heard recently. Okay. The next question from Ms. Evans too is about the CO2 footprint for making milk. And are there any innovation or technologies that could lower the carbon footprint for in the dairy production system?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I like to refer to something what Mr. Tanapum also said, is that he showed the table where the CAGR, the growth of insect powder, was largest, and was actually the Netherlands on the 3rd place, considering and the States on the 1st place and Canada on the 2nd, considering that the USA has 20 times more people than Holland, Canada like 2 times more, and Netherlands is already on the 3rd place. I think it shows that Dutch are continuously looking for innovations. It's really, we're a small country. We had to be entrepreneurial and innovative in order to mean something in the world. So that's kind of in our genes. So it was quite, I never seen those figures before, but it's quite interesting to see that the Netherlands is quite interested in those insect ingredients. And why am I using that introduction? I think it's one of the, like I said, it's in our genes to continuously develop and innovate. And that's also what made us to get with dairy where we stand today. And like Mr. Teunis also said, I think one of the downsides of being very successful is that you might be too successful, right? So for a relative small country, we have quite a lot of animals and a lot of milk currently. But that means that there are also a lot of technologies already being implemented and in the pipeline to further improve. And two, I think, most recent developments that you see in the Netherlands, one is to put a technological solution at the farm to reduce emissions by treating the manure in a way that the emissions go down. That is one. And another one is, we actually launched it last week, is that we're starting a pilot with one of the biggest feeding companies and technology companies in the Netherlands, DSM, to add supplements to animal feed, which have been tested and are healthy for animals, but reduce emissions also from the cows. Those are technologies that come from continuous development and continuous innovations. And that's what we do currently in the Netherlands. But looking, for instance, at Thailand, like I said, also improving the output per cow, so the yield per cow, is also one of the developments that definitely can still be done. So there are many. It's like playing chess, right? There are many things you can do in order to improve, and it's always about looking at it from the whole value, from the whole chain, the whole production chain, and see where you can do what's best in which country or which situation. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Evans. So the next question is from Mr. Mario from Green Ants. It's about, the question is, increasing forest is an advantage of ant farming. Are there any restriction of species of trees for reforestation for ant farming?
So we thank you very much for this question. So yeah, we farm Ocophila smaragdina, which is present in Southeast Asia, and Ocophila longinoda in Eastern Africa. The ant can live on many trees, but obviously not on every kind of tree species. So yeah, there are limitations, and the full list can be found on our website. But most of the common trees farmed in Thailand, such as cocoa, mango, citrus can be a perfect habitat for Ocophila smaragdina. Thank you.
Okay, there's another question for Mario. The question is, please clarify how you turn the farming system to be NFT.
Yeah, so each tree is a carbon sequestrator. A tree can store carbon and therefore can sequestrate CO2 from the atmosphere and therefore contributes to mitigate climate change. Therefore, we take the geographical coordinates and the specifics of each tree we tokenize, and we generate a virtual tree with the technology of a non-fungible token. And this non-fungible token is therefore a smart contract, is a code on the blockchain. We code on Polygon, and in the smart contracts generates one Greenland crypto coin for each kilogram of carbon provenly stored in that tokenized trees. So this way we valorize each tree for its ability to mitigate and contrast climate change. I hope that I clarified.
Okay, thank you very much, Mario, for answering the questions. Next question is for Ms. Evans. How do we attract young people to become the next generation farmers? Ms. Evans, can you hear the questions?
Yes, there was indeed. I just heard at the end. So can you please repeat?
How do we attract young people to become the next generation farmer?
Nice question. Yeah, I said a bit about it in the presentation. It's I think in many parts of the world, it has a reputation of and not making a lot of money, not making money fast. I think what young people like, maybe not all, but let's not treat them as one group. But so what you see in a lot of countries is that the rural areas are getting more empty and people move to the cities. It's not really a sexy job to do, if I may call it that way. So what needs to be done is to really show that it actually, I truly mean that. I have great respect for farmers because it's really a complex business. And so you need to have knowledge about the input side. So the feed, the plants, the breeding, the housing. Then you have a cow. Well, you have to treat the cow and milk it. But it's the more and more professional a farm becomes, you really have to steer on data, get data from cows, know what they do, and to control it and to improve it. So it's really a business, not just what you just do on a Sunday morning. So it's hard work. It's 24/7, and it's not always bringing in fast and a lot of money. But what makes, if you really look at your own job, what makes it that it brings fun to your job? It's to feel rewarded, one, but also to see that what you do has impact. So that if you gain knowledge via training, for instance, and you apply it on a farm, you see that the cow becomes healthier or produces more or lives longer or whatever, or your carbon footprint goes down for that matter, then you're motivated to keep going. So it's really that, again, I come back to, let's all support the farmers to see what they can do, and they are the food producers of the world, right? So it's important, extremely important to respect and reward them for that, and to continuously help them to get the knowledge, but also access to the means in order to improve what they really want, and then they'll stay for sure.
Okay, so that's okay. Dr. Kais would like to give some comments, please.
I want to react on that. I think the situation in the Netherlands is different from the situation in Thailand. I think in the Netherlands it's a way of life. People like the freedom, they are used to live like that. The children of farmers, you still see a lot of them go to the farm afterwards, but they go first to the university. So that's high level farmers we have in the Netherlands. The Wageningen University they go to. In Thailand, you have a different situation because you have a lot of small farmers with only a small area to produce. So that's a more difficult situation also for future. It's also a question about land ownership. So there's a lot of questions you have to solve in Thailand to make agriculture also in future for the next generation attractive. But I think an attractive thing could be digitalization, artificial intelligence. Young people like to work with computers, with iPhones. So not working on rice fields in the heat, as a lot of farmers still do. But you have to find a solution how to have a mechanization, which is possible to pay for the farmers. So you also need financing for it. But you really have to think about it and also to educate them to get them on a higher level. So that is a real challenge for Thailand, I think, for future, because in Thailand farmers are getting older, and the young generation is going to the city. It's easier to earn the money. You don't want to work in the heat, so that's a challenge for the future. But I think the independency, and if you are a good entrepreneur, I think you can make a very attractive work, and also maybe working on improving the sustainability. It's also a challenge. So that's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kais, for the very, very good comments. I think it's a challenge for many countries, especially developing countries, for attractive the new farmers, the young generations. Like in Thailand, we try to, for example, give the scholarship for those who want to study agriculture, and it's still going on. But I think sooner they will realize about the importance of agriculture. And I agree that the technologies, innovation would attract them to become like a smart farmer, using the technologies and become entrepreneur, not only somebody who grow the plants and harvest, right? So they have to do some business and earn the profit from their agricultural products. Thank you. Okay, so next question is for Ms. Davisa. And the question is, would Codex approval help in marketing and the products globally?
Yes, thank you for the questions. And I see another question is from me as well on how Codex plays a role in the local food security and local community. So I would like to answer both of them together because they are kind of connected. And this actually relate well with the previous question and the answers and comments given by Yvonne and Dr. Kais. Yes, how Codex work is not very direct to the local communities because their national government is in between. So Codex is the international body, right? So under the SPS agreement, every country under the WTO should harmonize and try to align their standards, food standards toward the international reference. So if we could manage the international standards to allow our own products, like from Thailand, that fit with the production system, the kind of methods and our products, then that would facilitate the trade, the international trade, because Codex provide already the proof that the products that up to standards that they can be traded internationally. And then how could that help with the local community? That's the job of government organization like ACFS and other organizations. So we have to align our standards with the Codex and then educate people, our farmers, our producers, that you should produce this way, produce up to standard, and that in future that will facilitate your market access and stuff like that. So that will bring if they can do the export and can be trade more, increase the volume of trade, that means there will be more money to the local community. So that's how I see that, and when that's linked to the comments made earlier by Dr. Geis, that when money come into the local communities, to the families, then the children will not have negative feeling with the farmers, right? Okay, this job maybe is a bit hard, but they can still bring money, and they have their own land because their parents already have that land, right? So then can continue. And with the new technology and with what Mr. Mario has said with the NFT and everything, this new generation may be more attractive with, okay, we already have the resources, we have the land, we have the knowledge from our parents, and we have this technology, and we can have new market access to local, to international markets, then why not, right? So that's how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davisa. I think the market accessibility is very important, and the Codex and ACFS is working hard on that. Okay. Next question is for Mr. Mario. Can you explain the model a little bit more? Do you register the farm as a carbon sequestration unit and then give award to the farmers as a percentage as you lock the carbon accruals? And how do you ensure that the farmer use no pesticide, and does the farmer fruit production remain independent of your business?
Thank you for this question. So I would like first to thank you, Ms. Davisa, for what she was saying. Young farmers are the most proactive farmers in the business development that Greenland supports. Most of the farmers we work with are young farmers who took the knowledge and the experience, the love for the land from their parents, and are ready to use innovative technologies for making the most out of it for nature. So Thailand is blessed by these new generations, and actually I have noticed at least in Thailand that actually there is a movement from the cities to the countryside to come back and farming the land. Fueled by the crisis caused by coronavirus. So it is actually a very, very interesting and promising place, Thailand, for innovative agriculture. So for replying to the question, our unit is the tree. Each tree is an independent new unit which sequesters carbon. We make a contract with the owner of the land on which the trees are planted into, and we tokenize each tree individually. Our AI-based monitoring system measures the amount of carbon stored in each tree, and therefore rewards the farmers and the other NFT holders with the amount in Grand Crypto coins, with the amount of coins due to the amount of carbon stored. So if one tree stores 1 kilo of carbon and the farmer is the owner of that NFT, the farmer would get one green ant crypto coin. We ensure that the farmers don't use pesticide because either they can prove that they are farming ants on those trees, and the presence of the ants means that there is no pesticide usage, or they have certified. They are certified by other authorities, such as the GAP, the Good Agricultural Practices certification. If they have that one, for us it's fine. Fruit and timber from the tree remains independent for now from our business. However, Green Ant is planning in future to help farmers with blockchain traceability of their products. In fact, blockchain can help farmers in trace their products from farm to the consumer, and therefore further certifying it as organic for export, for example. I hope that I answered, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mario. Okay, well, too bad we have a limited time here, so let's hear some words of thanks and closure from Dr. Kais. Yes, please, Dr. Kais.
Thank you, Dr. Sazitor. Indeed, we are over time already. It's 5:05, almost half an hour over time, but I think we have had a good discussion. It was nice listening to you, to all these different perspectives on proteins, animal-based proteins, the sustainability of it, plant-based proteins. So we have a lot to choose in the future. I think especially also the discussion about young people, the young farmers, it's also an important one for Thailand. So I hope Thailand and the Netherlands can cooperate, that we can use each knowledge and experience on cricket production, which is very important. I think also as a good animal-based protein resource. It was also good listening to Yvonne van der Vorst from Friesland Campina, because it's important that also big companies like Friesland are thinking in a sustainable way and how to improve it, how to improve the food chain and the food production. It's important to improve yourself and to get better and better. And we have to be realistic. We have to produce more food, what I mentioned already, in a more sustainable way. So that's a real challenge. I don't want that in 5 years, it will be impossible to pay the food anymore because it's too expensive for some people to buy it, because it's also about affordability of the food. This was a short summary of what we spoke about. I want to thank you, Dr. Sazitor. You did a great job. I want to thank all speakers for the presentation. And I also want to thank the audience for participating and to listen to us. It's a little bit later than we expected, but thanks a lot. And I hope to see you again in the next webinar we will organize about the subject, because it's an important subject for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kais. And again, thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. So we hope to see you in the next webinars, and we wish you all good health and stay safe from COVID-19, and have a good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.